Welcome to Inspire Campfire, a podcast where ordinary people tell their stories of extraordinary adventure. These are campfire stories meant to inspire the rest of us to light the fire within, get outside, follow our dreams, and return to tell our own stories. Ready? Let's strike the match.
Welcome to the show. I'm your host, Scott Wurzbacher, and today we're digging into what it really takes to intentionally create a life filled with travel, adventure, and meaning. That's exactly what today's guest did. She convinced her boss to let her work remotely around the world, living in 12 countries over 12 months, all in the name of better understanding remote work and how it can truly work for companies. Sarah Aviram joins us from New York City. She's a #1 best-selling author, a Fortune 500 HR leader, and a TEDx speaker with over 800,000 views. Her work has been featured by Forbes, Metro, and the BBC, and her latest book, The Scenic Route, launches in August. I love Sarah's story because she didn't just chase a dream, she framed it in a way that created value beyond herself. And along the way, while building a life of travel, she discovered something unexpected. And I can't wait to dig into this conversation and share it with you today. Sarah, welcome to the campfire.
Thank you so much. What a nice intro. Appreciate it, Scott.
I'm so excited about this. There are just the whole story is awesome, but there's certain parts about it that's just, it's genius. You're a genius.
Well, I wouldn't take it that far.
Well, so you figured out how to devise a plan to work remotely from around the world, and your job not only supported it, but they seemingly endorsed it with a strategic project to turning this into a strategic project. Mm-hmm. So I just wonder, for listeners, I got the pleasure of talking with you a couple of weeks ago. And I even got a chance to read the first couple chapters of your book. Amazing. Can't wait for it to come out in August. But for listeners, I wonder if you could just kind of recap this adventure that you were able to take while continuing to work at your current job.
Yeah. So this was back in 2019. So this was really before remote work was as prevalent as it is now. And so it was quite the ask that I made of my CEO, and it was quite the bold move. I'd been doing research on future work trends at the time. I was the head of talent development for a New York-based tech company. And so my job was really to think about what's the future of talent? How are we going to find the best talent, bring them in, keep them, develop them? And a lot of the research I was doing was saying remote work was the future, this is pre-pandemic. And I thought to myself, wow, I wonder if this is going to be something we would offer as a company to incoming potential employees. And I thought that we really needed to better understand, though, first, what are the challenges of remote work, the opportunities? What do people struggle with when it comes to motivation or collaboration? And so I came up with this idea to be the guinea pig of the world of remote work and put together a business case for it for the CEO. But not only would I just be working remotely, like from home, I would be working from around the world. Yeah. Our company had new global collaboration tools we could use. We were expanding internationally. I just feel like there was a lot of opportunity to learn from other cultures, interview other people, and not just have this be like a New York-based experiment. Yes. So I pitched this idea to work from 12 countries in 12 months. And this is what I think sold him on it. The caveat that I said, at any time, if you think I'm not performing my job at my best, I will come back. Yeah. And so I think that gave him a lot of like, okay, all right, I can deal with that. And then I also said, this will cost you $0 outside of my current salary. So just like I'd pay for my apartment rent in New York, I will pay for living abroad. Right. And so that made it easier for him to say yes.
It's amazing. You're a genius. You're a genius. So can you share the kind of the details of the adventure? So you were in 12 different countries over 12 months. Mm-hmm. What were the 12 countries that you were in?
Yeah. So I actually wasn't solo traveling. So I had found this company called Remote Year. Fortunately, they don't exist anymore, but they organized a travel itinerary and brought professionals together from all over the world to travel and live remotely. So they were not a job provider. You needed a job you could do remotely, but they helped organize your ability to do so. And so I signed up for this set itinerary. So I didn't specifically choose each city and country, but the 12 of them were Lima, Peru, Santiago, Chile,
Mm-hmm.
Medellin, Colombia,
Mm-hmm.
Mexico City, Mexico, Hanoi, Vietnam, Chiang Mai, Thailand, Kyoto, Japan, Kuala Lumpur, Malaysia, Split, Croatia, Lisbon, Portugal, Valencia, Spain, and Cape Town, South Africa.
Gosh, it's amazing.
It was amazing.
I mean, you were literally all over the world. I mean, and so I know we're going to spend a little bit of time talking about that. And we could like probably spend an entire podcast episode just talking about each one of those locations. Oh my gosh, how cool.
It was amazing.
So bring me back, and so we'll come back to some of those locations, but so bring me back to the sort of this startup. I mean, you're going to do this nomadic year. Like, what was it like for you kind of putting this business plan together? What was like, just take me to like the emotions and the reactions that were happening between you and your boss and the folks that you were presenting this to. Like, did their eyes get huge and go, what are you thinking?
So, I mean, it's so funny. As I was putting it together and I told friends and family, a lot of them were like, why would he say yes? Like, why would the CEO say yes? Like, people, not that they were discouraging me, but they were like, go for it. I mean, the worst thing you can say is no, but no one around me felt very confident that he would say yes. And it is like one of those moments where, what is the expression? Like, it takes, 15 seconds of insane courage to like get something you want. That's
I like it.
Yeah, I just was like, what's the worst that can happen? I mean, maybe he'll fire me because he's like, what guts does she have to even ask something like this? I didn't think it'd go there. But what I really thought was, when I was preparing the business case, is what's in it for them.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, that's the main
and that's
thing.
the genius in this, I think. Yeah.
And to be honest, I was pretty good in my day in negotiations, I must say. And so I started my career in sales. So I really thought not just what's in it for them, but like, how do I actually make the CEO look like the hero, like the one who came up with this idea? Yeah. And oh God, I hope he never watches this. But when I pitched it, I said, we could position this company and you as the leader in the future of work. And like, we could publish research on what we found, the challenges and opportunities of it, like before other companies or organizations or competitors of ours do that. And so this was really part of the pitch about making it look good for him and how our company could really lead this trend. And I think that, combined with the caveats of like, if it doesn't work, it doesn't work. Like, no one even has to know about this experiment if we don't want them to. Yeah. He was really all for that. And so that was really exciting, because this was a CEO that people said didn't even like people working from home on a Friday, let alone gallivanting around the world for a year. So certainly when I gave my pitch, I mean, my heart was racing, sweaty palms. I mean, I really was like, I can't believe I'm asking this. And then he paused and kind of looked at me before he said, do it. And I kind of was like shocked. I literally walked out of the meeting before either of us could change our minds, and I kind of was like transfixed, like, did that just really happen? Yeah.
I mean, were you in disbelief? Like, what was immediately going on for you? Like, afterwards, you're like, oh my gosh, what did I just do?
I couldn't believe it. He told me he wanted to make sure our general counsel, like our head of the legal department, was on board if there's any legal risk, tax implications. But me and her were pretty tight. And so I thought, like, okay, if he says yes, I feel like unless there's some big legal issue, which I had looked into before, I didn't think there would be a problem. So I kind of left there being like, wow, like, honestly, in that moment, and I felt this several times during the year when I started traveling, was like, even if this year is a total bust, which I knew it wouldn't be, but the fact that I asked for something so bold,
it's huge.
And I got a yes. Like, for me, that was like the pinnacle of it almost. It was like, wow, like, what else could I have the courage to go for, And so I really feel like that was the biggest deal. That was the huge part of it for me that felt, I don't know, kind of incredible and made me feel powerful in some way.
I mean, I honestly feel like we could just kind of stop right there. I mean, in terms of like advice for listeners, like there it is right there. But can you can wrap that up into a concise little piece of advice from Sarah?
It's just like, go for it. Like,
Yeah.
truly, most of the time, the worst thing that can happen is someone says no. You will not be worse off than you were before, wondering what if, what if, what if. So I just say, like, ask the questions, go for broke. Like, really, the worst that can happen is someone says no, and rejection is not a big deal.
Yeah. Well, so, I think is so cool about this. Like, I'm somebody that thinks about like meaning and purpose all the time. And, you often hear in personal growth books, like that, if you really want to feel fulfilled, you have to have a passion that's bigger than yourself. And that's exactly what you did here. I mean, you got to go on this epic trip, but you did frame it in such a way that it was bigger than yourself. And I'm just curious, like, we read about this, but like it manifested for you. And I'm just curious if you could just say a few words about like the manifestation of that, like doing something that you're personally going to benefit from, but doing it from the point of view of something that's bigger than yourself.
It's such a good question. This was one of those things I just like felt in my gut. Like, I have to ask this. Like, I will truly be thinking about this all the time. And I remember at some point, a couple people said like, well, maybe wait till you form a better relationship with the CEO, because I was newly reporting to him, or maybe wait till this or that. And it was like, I don't know, I had something inside me that was just like, what am I waiting for? When is a better time to ask something so bold,
Right. Right.
And so I just think following your intuition, even when people around you, because people give you advice based on their own fears and their own experiences of rejection, or, some people would just never even ask. And so I think like it's funny, and we'll talk about this later, but my new book has this inner compass idea of it, like following your inner compass, like the direction that your own heart is taking you into, and going for it.
Yeah. I mean, I love it. So there, an idea, like ideas, they come to us. Right. And it's like, clearly for you, there was some inner spark. And part of the thing with Inspire Campfire, it's about listening to the voice inside that calls us to adventure. And so there had to have been a moment, like I feel that there must have been a moment where you sort of felt this inner voice saying like, this is something that you need to do. And I'm just curious, like, what did this idea really come out of? Like, how can I help the company? Or is this like a personal desire? Like, was there something from like childhood? Like, I want to travel the world. I'm just curious about that inner voice.
I think it was so many things that came together at once. I've always had a love of travel, and I always imagined doing it for a long period of time. So when my brother got married, him and his wife did basically a 9-month honeymoon. Like, they quit their jobs and traveled the world. I was like, oh, wow, I would love to do something like that one day, And you're always like waiting for the right moment or the right person to travel with. And, I didn't have a partner at the time. I was like, who's going to do this with me? So I just kind of like put it to the side for a while. And then I thought, as I was doing this research on the future of work and these remote work trends, and I was like, okay, that's really interesting. Like, this is becoming a thing people are doing, like working from anywhere. Like, maybe I could work while doing it, And so that idea popped into my head. And then on a really personal note, I actually was dating someone who was divorced with kids.
Yeah.
And when we ended that relationship, I thought, wow, what's the thing I can do now that I don't have these responsibilities? It was almost like the opposite. It was like the thing I can do while I'm single, where I don't have responsibilities back home, where I'm fully free.
Yes.
And so it was sort of this combination of all those things. It was like, wow, I can go travel because I can. I don't have anyone else to ask permission from.
Yeah, it's so cool. Like, I feel like if you kind of look back on childhood, like, had you ever done anything this big before? And like, where did this sort of like adventure desire come from? Like, an early.
My parents are big travelers, and they've always really encouraged me and my siblings to go see the world and be curious. Curiosity is kind of like the top value. I feel like, especially my dad instilled in us, like, ask questions, be curious, wonder about things, learn about cultures. And so that's always been part of me. And of course, it was in smaller ways, a vacation here and there. But the vacations we did as a family were often city vacations, like not beach ones, which are obviously fun and amazing to recharge, but they were really like exploration type of vacations, learning about a culture and trying new food and being in a place that speaks a different language. My parents are not American themselves. So I think that's part of it too, is they themselves are from different cultures than each other, than where I was born. So, growing up in that environment and being exposed to different cultures and languages was always something I appreciated and was curious about exploring more.
That's so cool. And you got, 12 countries, 12 months. You got to see a lot of different cultures. Yeah. So I don't know that we're going to have time to get into all 12 countries, but I would love to hear maybe a broad brush. Cause like for me, traveling is, it's about the people, it's about the cultures, but it's also about the natural beauty. So can you kind of maybe paint a little picture for us of a few of your favorite places and kind of what you experienced in those areas?
There's so many stories I could tell. I'll say a few. So Japan was definitely one of my favorite countries that we're in, but specifically we were based in Kyoto for a month. And Kyoto is really the cultural capital of Japan. So while Tokyo might be the commercial capital, Kyoto is really cultural, and it was bombed at all in World War II. So architecturally, it's quite intact. And it is this incredible example of old world meets new world. It is architecturally intact, the food, the culture, the people. Sometimes you feel like you're frozen in time. And at the same time, it's super modern and technologically advanced, like so much of Japan is. And so I tell this story in the book of this day where I'm walking by an Apple store in Japan, and I see a woman dressed as a geisha in her full outfit, which is a tradition that's hundreds and hundreds of years old. And I'm thinking, wow, this is Kyoto in a snapshot, like old world meets new world, tradition meets the modern world. And I thought it was just like an incredible picture of like what Japan and specifically Kyoto really is about.
Yeah. It's on my list. I'd love to go there. That sounds great. Okay. Share another one.
So from Thailand. So Thailand, I had, when I was thinking about what story I wanted to write about when I was writing about this experience, I had two really impactful experiences from that month. And they seemed so completely opposite that I thought, which one should I really dig into and write more about? Because they're not connected at all. And I don't know if you've experienced writing or journaling, but sometimes as you write and you journal, you kind of figure out what the meaning and what the lesson of that story is. And so I wrote both, and I was like, wait, these are totally connected. So just to give you an idea of what it was. So one story was about how I learned how to meditate from a Buddhist monk in a monastery.
Love it.
And the other one was going to basically a drag show put on by Thai ladyboys.
Okay.
And we got to interview them in advance and kind of learn about their struggles and what they're excited about. And I was just like, wow, these are two completely different experiences. Which one am I going to write about? And as I started writing about them, I realized like, wow, I learned very similar lessons about identity. In the case of the monks, they taught me, how important it is to release identity, release your ego, release attachment to titles and position and who you are. And that's the path to kind of freedom and liberation. And on the other hand, I had these ladyboys that are like, no, be bold, embrace it, be unapologetic. That's the path to being liberated and free. And I was like, wow, this is incredible, And so they were both really similar themes. So I wrote about these in the book and how they connect to each other and how these seemingly completely different experiences actually led to the same kind of lesson about, there is no kind of direct answer on how to feel comfortable with yourself, but maybe sometimes we don't have to figure that out. We just keep asking ourselves the questions over and over again and get to sit with them and see where we are in our lives and what matters to us in that point in time.
Hey everyone, it's Scott here. This podcast is a passion project for me because I absolutely love adventure. And it's thanks to the effort of my residential real estate team here in Charlotte, North Carolina, that many of you know as the W Realty Group, that this podcast gets funded. This awesome group of people have unmatched levels of competence and caring for our clients. If you know of anyone looking to buy or sell a home, our team serves the Charlotte, North Carolina market, but we can also help you find an agent anywhere throughout the US or Canada through our highly connected network. When you support our real estate business, you are also supporting this podcast. Thanks for listening, and thanks for your referrals. All right, so you just sold me on the rest of the book.
Check.
You were kind enough to share with me a couple of chapters, which I got to read. But now I have to read about how a drag show and meditating with monks, like the intersection. We might have to do a whole podcast episode.
Oh my gosh, happy to.
My language with the Buddhist monk, and now this is amazing. I love this.
Okay,
so
awesome.
I guess I'm curious on that one. Just what did you give me? Can you give me a teaser? Like what did you discover in that?
Sometimes we want answers. We want to know what to do. We want people to give us, it's funny with my professional hat on, I write keynote talks for companies. I deliver them. And I want to come with the insights and the frameworks and the actionable things people are going to do. And then you find yourself in an environment you've never been in. And I'm writing a book that's quite personal and vulnerable. And I'm thinking like, I don't have all the answers. Am I supposed to give that to my readers? And when I really sat with it, I was like, no, but what's more human than talking about your own musings, the way you're trying to work through something in real time and not always having the answers to everything. And so that chapter specifically, I don't kind of say, and the moral of the story is, I kind of say like these two seemingly opposing ways to feel a sense of freedom and liberation are both important and they're both worth considering. And I wonder, and I kind of left myself wondering like two questions really, like, who am I when I don't have to be anyone or anything? Like the monks told me. And then what I learned from the Ladyboy performers was, who am I when I allow myself to be everything? And so those were kind of like the two questions I sat with. And I said, I'm not gonna answer them. I'm just gonna sit with them and at any point in time allow myself to ask those questions and see what comes up.
Yeah, we're gonna have to come back to this one after the book comes out. I love those two questions. That's awesome. Okay, Sarah, we covered Asia. Take us to another continent.
Okay, I'll give you. This is an interesting one. Croatia. This is one of the last chapters I wrote, even though it's like the middle of my year. And I wrote it because I was like, I don't know what to write about Croatia. Like nothing that great happened there. No standout moment, no specific wild adventure. And so I thought, this is going to be a boring chapter. But it actually ended up being one of my favorites because what happened was, I think it was month 9 or 10 of the 12. And I realized like, I'm a little tired of traveling. Like I'm a little like every month, a new culture and a new language and a new apartment and finding my cafe again. And where I want to do my work from. And it was like a time to kind of settle in. And I was like, I don't want to do a lot of adventures this month. And so one thing though, that I did do is I've never seen them like sunsets, like the sunsets I saw in Split, Croatia. I mean, there's the most incredible sunsets I've ever seen. And so going to watch the sunset became kind of a ritual with me and some of the friends that I worked with. Our co-working space was right across the street from the water, the Adriatic Sea, and we would go watch the sunset. And it became this ritual every day at 6:00. We'd close our laptops. We'd go see the sunset. And I was like, well, I'm going to write a chapter about watching sunsets. Like, that's not exciting. But what the chapter really became about was the importance of slowing down, the importance of ritual, the importance of finding things that ground you no matter where you are. And it became a really beautiful reflection because I thought, when I started this 1-year journey, I did it because I love adventure. I love novelty, a new country, a new language, or even in New York, a new restaurant in Brooklyn with the best thin crust pizza, like whatever it is, a new Broadway show all the time, new, right?
Mm.
And I always thought that that's like peak aliveness, is always finding the new thing. And Croatia really made me sit back and say, what if peak aliveness is creating rituals and habits that you want to come back to every day, that you enjoy the repetition and you enjoy sharing it with the people next to you? And so I kind of left myself with a question in that chapter of like, instead of asking, what's next, maybe I should start asking myself, what's worth returning to?
Mm.
And I really loved writing about that chapter because it's so true, and it made me think like, oh, when I go back to New York after this year, like what rituals do I want to create that will keep me grounded and feeling connected, that it's not always about the new thing all the time.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. I love that so much. Oh, thank you for sharing. I mean, so many experiences. I guess I'm curious because this adventure you're still working through all of this.
Mm.
So can you talk a little bit, like, the cliche of work-life balance? I mean, you're only there for a year, so you've got to like kind of maximize your time, and you're only in each place for a month. How did you manage kind of the fun side and the exploration and the travel with your work? How did that all kind of work out for you?
I got lucky because with my manager, we decided that I would overlap with US Eastern hours, 4 hours per work day.
Okay.
So it didn't have to be an 8-hour overlap. So I would still work 8 hours a day, but I could be flexible with half of that time. Because I had some friends that, when we were in Asia, they had to work 9 p.m. to 5 a.m. in order to overlap a full day with the US East Coast hours, which was really difficult, as you can imagine. So when we started the trip in Central America, South America, so it was pretty easy. Usually we were just like an hour or two off from Eastern time. So basically worked a normal day. And a lot of the adventures would happen like 5 p.m. and later, and then on the weekends. So not too different. And then when we got to Europe, I actually liked it a lot because my work day would start around 2 or 3 p.m., depending on where we were, and go till 11 p.m. But they tend to eat dinner much later there. So going out for dinner 11 p.m. wasn't crazy. So then I would have this whole morning to explore. I would have 9 a.m. to 2 p.m. to explore, which was great because I had a daytime exploration time. So that was really interesting and fun. And then Asia was challenging. So my commitment to overlap with work. So typically the hours where I would overlap with Eastern time would be like 8 p.m. to midnight or so was when I would definitely have to be on. And then I was flexible with those 4 hours. So let's say, 9 to 12 or 9 to 1 in the morning, maybe one day I would work, but maybe that was like, no, it's too early. Like nothing's going on in the city, or maybe, I'll work those hours, or maybe there are things I want to do. So I'm going to explore those hours and then do work from 1 p.m. to 4, so there was flexibility. And what I found is like, if I had 4 hours to work when none of my colleagues back in the States were working, no DMs, no emails, like I got so much more work done because I wasn't being interrupted. No one was looking for me. I didn't have to answer anything. So I would save work that needed like concentrated focus. Like, I have to prepare a presentation or a deck, or whatever it is, or think strategically. I would do it in the time where I would not be interrupted. And then all the meetings I would do in the time I overlapped. So that was kind of how we figured it out.
You're a genius. You had it figured out. You got to make it all work. It's incredible. So cool. All right. So before we kind of jump into like overall reflections and things, I do kind of want to just sort of revisit the places that you went. Maybe we could just do this in sort of a quick people, culture, and like natural landscape. So in terms of your favorites, what was your favorite in terms of the people?
So I have a connection to Mexico. My mom is originally from there. And so for me, and I speak Spanish, so really any of the countries where Spanish was spoken, naturally, I connected more to the people. And so for me, I would say that was a big one.
Amazing. Okay. How about culture?
Culture. I'm going to repeat and say Japan because it felt so different.
Yeah.
their organization, the structure, the respect for customs and tradition, I just found to be fascinating. So I would rank that as top because it was so different and I love learning about it.
Love it. All right. And then the natural landscape.
Cape Town, South Africa.
Really?
Oh, what's
tell me more.
incredible about Cape Town is you're in a city. It's not like a wild city like New York, obviously, but it's a city. But you have the beach and you have the mountains. A short flight away, you have Kruger National Park. You can go on a safari. I mean, it was incredible to have access to so much nature. So you could go in the ocean one day, you could go for an incredible hike the next day, and then go on a safari.
That sounds really awesome. I'm curious, like when you were in these locations, did you travel on the weekends or did you kind of explore locally?
It depended. Yeah. So sometimes I said, this month I really want to get to know this city well. Like I want to do things here. But of course, it's so tempting because there's so much nearby and other cities to explore. So oftentimes on the weekends, I also did day trips to different places or overnight trips.
Yeah. Okay, cool. So I want to get to know a little bit more about some of your personal reflections, but let's round out the work piece because this was bigger than you. And there was an element of this where you're going to bring this experience back to your company, right? So I'm curious, what did you bring back to the company as it relates to the work-life balance, the working remotely?
So things took a wild turn. So I started this experience March 1st of 2019 and it finished March 1st of 2020. So I don't know if you or your listeners remember what happened. Sorry. Yeah. So I check in for my flight to JFK from Cape Town, South Africa on March 1st of 2020.
Oh my God.
And at security, they say, we have to ask you a few questions. Have you been to China in the last 14 days? I said, no. Have you been in contact with anyone who has? And I said, not to my knowledge. Okay, we just want to make sure you haven't been exposed to this new coronavirus.
Oh my gosh.
And I'm like, oh my God, I've been reading about this in the news. And all we knew was at the time was like, it was in China and Spain and Italy. Those were like the first three countries where it was really strong. But they just asked me about China. And so I was like, oh, okay, that was weird. But I mean, all these countries I've been to, no, I wasn't in China. Right. So I land, I come home. The next day I go back into my office a year later. And, people are talking about coronavirus. People are already like fist bumping instead of shaking hands. Like kind of those things have changed from a sanitary aspect. Yeah. And a week later, before I even have an opportunity to present my findings and share my research on the future of work, they say, everyone go work from home indefinitely because of this global pandemic.
Oh my goodness.
Like, this is wild. We didn't talk about this, but I wrote a book during my first year. That's different from the book I'm writing now. That book was about remote work and about what I was learning about fulfillment. So I was writing that as I was traveling, and I had like the draft of my manuscript, and I'm like, the whole world just went remote and I just wrote a book about it. And so it was just wild timing. So the company says everyone work from home. 2 months later, they did massive layoffs. I was laid off, and I was like, well, I just wrote a book about remote work. This is a body of research the world needs. I've always wanted to start my own thing. So many companies could learn from what I researched. So I'm going to go off on my own. And so I started doing workshop. Everything was remote at the time, workshops and, keynote talks and things like that, helping companies understand the world of remote work and how to keep employees motivated and engaged. And that was based on my first book called Remotivation. And so that's what happens. And
wow,
it's wild because this second book is because the last 5-6 years was talking about, how do people be more motivated and engaged with the lens of remote work. And that lens has changed as the world has adapted. And now I talk about how to find fulfillment and be motivated in a changing world where so much is uncertain. So the lens has changed, but the kind of core problem I solve for hasn't. But as I've done these talks and workshops in the last year, people are like, well, we want to hear the travel stories and the adventures and like what you learned and all the personal stuff you're asking me. And I'm like, okay, I think I have a second book in me that's not the professional experience of what happened that year, but the personal one.
Yeah.
And so that's where this book, Scenic Route, was born from.
Yeah. Oh man. So in the intro, I alluded to something unexpected, and we'll talk about that. But that's a piece I wasn't even expecting, and so this is just so cool. But I do believe, like the cliche, I guess everything happens for a reason. But synchronicities and serendipities and these things, and you even talked about like two different experiences that you didn't really see the connection point until you started writing about it. But like, as you reflect back on your experience working at this company, pitching this idea, and then all of a sudden, like, it just like blows up with COVID-19. I guess I'm just curious, like, what are your reflections when you look at that span of events holistically and kind of where you are now?
It is wild. I mean, people are like, are you like a fortune teller? Like, of course, I would not have wished this pandemic on the world at all. But I go back to that, like, I don't know, sometimes we go back to things and it's kind of like, what's the expression? Hindsight's 20/20. But, I think about, why did I have such this like strong gut feeling that I had to do it now? Like, this was the time. Because the truth is, if I had waited, I wouldn't have been able to do it.
Right.
Flights were canceled, airports were shut, no one was going anywhere. And I say, oh, was there something supernatural happening or something?
Right.
My intuition knew. I don't know. Like, I love to say, I don't know what that gut feeling was like. No, it's now. Like, I just felt it so strongly. It's hard to say, but the synchronicity of what happened, the timing is uncanny, I must say.
I mean, and it set you up for the person that you are today, right?
Totally. And that's why I think about going back to telling your listeners like to go for things. And I'm thinking like, wow, that my CEO gave me changed the whole trajectory of my life. I mean, I went on the most incredible adventure of my life. I wrote 2 books now from that experience. I started a business I'd always wanted to start. It's just kind of incredible. I did a TEDx talk about it. I mean, so many other bucket list things that I had in my life happened because the first one happened. So it was like a bit of a domino effect. And I do think it comes back to that feeling of like, wow, I made that happen. What else can I make happen? And then you start to not think you're so crazy anymore, because I've had friends that want to write a book, but they don't write the book. And I'm like, well, I'm just going to write the book. And if I have to self-publish the first one, now I have a publisher for the second one, like whatever. Right. I just get it out there. Like, no one can tell you what you can and can't do.
Yes.
Part of me thinks that even if my CEO had said no, I would have figured out a way to do it anyway. Like, I think I was really feeling that too strongly to let it pass.
This is great. And it's a really good segue to another question that I wanted to ask you, because when you and I spoke the first time, you talked about that you have 3 core reasons of why you didn't do this before. And I just wonder if you could share those with listeners.
Yeah. So the first one was, I thought I would have to quit my job because how could I work and travel at the same time, right? So if I wanted to travel for a long period of time, I'd have to tap into my savings, spend all this money, not earn an income while I did it. So that was the first reason that I that prevented me from doing it earlier. I was like, how am I going to do this financially? The second one is, I don't want to do it alone. I'd love to be able to travel with someone who has the time and the ability to do something like this with me. So I just it's like, who's going to do this with me? I don't want to do the whole thing by myself. Parts of it, maybe. And then the third one was, I didn't really want to have to plan the whole thing. I'm not a huge planner. And it was like all the logistics of getting here and there and where to go. So that was also that. And so this program I found, Remote Year, solved for all 3 of those. Well, solved for 2 at least. They plan it for you and they bring the community of people. So I traveled with a group of 30 people the whole time. We moved together. So that was incredible to have this built-in community. And the third reason of not wanting to tap into my savings was fixed by being able to work while traveling and earn my salary.
Hey everyone, it's Scott here. Did you know that the members of my real estate team, W Realty Group, are listening to their own voices that call to adventure by setting big goals? Some of those goals include planning trips to Bali and the Kingdom of Bhutan, buying investment homes, and running the Chicago Marathon. At W Realty Group, we support and encourage these big goals and want to help turn them into reality. We're currently looking to add new members to the team. If you know a great real estate agent in the Charlotte, North Carolina area that would benefit from being part of our team, please send a text, an email, or give me a call. And know that when you support W Realty Group, you're also supporting this podcast. Thanks for listening. It's a really cool idea. So for listeners, if maybe didn't connect those dots, you're traveling with 30 people that are all kind of just doing their own thing. Everybody has their own job, their own work, but they're all committed to working remotely and traveling together.
Correct.
So you're all kind of doing your own thing, but you're traveling together as a cohort. Yeah,
exactly. And what was cool is that we got to sit next to each other at co-working spaces and cafes and work next to each other and bounce ideas off each other and ask questions, but they're not your technical coworkers. So like we had a camaraderie, but there's none of that sort of pressure of like, oh, can I ask, if it's like a real colleague, like there's no office politics or bureaucracy, right? Like you felt like you had colleagues without them being your real coworkers. So there was something really unique about that experience.
Yeah. Okay. So I watched your TED Talk, and there's a theme in there that I want to touch on. And this is kind of the unexpected piece that I heard. You create this intentional trip. You're going to go travel, create this kind of dream experience. But one of the things that you talked about in your TED Talk is this idea that wherever you go, there you are. And I wonder if you can just share some words on that for listeners.
Yeah. This was the most incredible experience ever, of course. And you realize that travel is a concentrated experience of change. Basically, what I mean is you are taken out of your day-to-day, you're exposed to new people and languages and cultures and environments. And that contrast creates a lot of questions about what's important to me and what matters and what do I care about? And those are great questions to ask yourself. And me and so many of these people I traveled with, the first 3 months, there's so much novelty and it's so exciting. And then after a few months, you're like, all right, like the novelty's faded. I mean, obviously it's still amazing, but you start to think about what matters in your life. And a lot of us were like, well, do I even like my job? Like, it's great that I get to do it from the beach in Bali, like no complaints, but it's kind of like we put a Band-Aid solution on the real problem, which is like, we don't like our job. And this makes it more tolerable, but it doesn't make it more enjoyable. Yeah. And I get that the goal for some people is not to love their jobs. They're like, it's for the paycheck. It's so I can spend time with my family and take them on vacation. And that's great. But for a lot of people, they were looking for a sense of to be able to make an impact and to grow their skills and to feel like they have purpose and value and to enjoy the work itself, to feel challenged, to be able to create and feel innovative. And so that was something that came up for not just me, but a lot of my travelers. It was like, oh, wow, like I still kind of feel the same way I did back home, which is why I thought this trip was going to kind of be the cure-all for my work blues, but I still feel the same way. And so they still had to deal with the reality of like, what does that mean about my career and what do I want to do differently when I come back? And those thoughts are what really triggered me to write my first book, Remotivation, because I was like, oh, I have all these HR tools in my toolkit. How do I use them for myself with this lens of remote work on it?
Yeah. So I think, and you and I talked about this a little bit the last time too, I think this is kind of interesting because you could say, hey, I did this adventure. I went to 12 different countries over 12 months. And what I discovered is that, your work's going to go with you no matter where you are. And you said, being in different locations might help you tolerate your work, but it's not going to ultimately make the work necessarily any more fulfilling over the long term. Mm-hmm. But the thing is that I'm curious, like you can say that to people, right? And you could even say, I could have read that in a book or something and figured that out. But like, did you need to go on the experience and actually have the experience to figure it out?
It's a great question. And for me, I think so. I do think though, like what I would tell people is like, am I saying like everyone go travel the world for an extended period of time, do the wild, crazy experiences? Like, yes, if you want to. And also, I don't think you need that specific type of experience to make you realize what's important to you. As I mentioned before, I think travel is one example of like contrast in your life. You don't have to like overhaul your life to really understand what matters and what you want more of or less of. And if you take a different route to work every day, if you move 3 blocks down the street and suddenly you're making a left instead of a right and you discover this new yoga studio, and like, oh, I didn't know this grocery store was here. And oh, wow, like this is a really cute cafe. And like literally it was 3 blocks from me. I never went in this direction. Like there's so much to be discovered right where you are. And so sometimes it's not a massive overhaul in your life, but just tweaking your routines, creating a little bit of that contrast in your life to help you assess what matters and what you'd like to do differently. That's more aligned with this current version of you as opposed to maybe the one that existed a few years ago.
Yeah. And to dig into the contrast thing a little bit, something that you said that I just really grabbed my attention is when you talked about contrast in traveling to different countries, it made you kind of ask yourself a question, is the way I'm living how I want to live as I compare it to these different experiences that I'm having that are so wildly different.
Yeah.
And so I'm curious for you, if there's like 1 or 2 examples of things where you said like, when I look back at my life in New York, like, yes, this is how I want to live. Or were there some things where you were able to say, no, that's not how I want to live?
Yeah. One huge thing for me is so before this trip, I lived alone for at least a decade, probably more. Mm-hmm. Loved it. I'd be busy at work all day in the office. I could come home to my quiet apartment. It was amazing. And then I went on this trip and I lived with people, with shared apartments. And it was so much fun. And I was like, oh, working from home and being able to bounce ideas off of someone or working from even the co-working space, but having someone to chat with at the end of the day or whatever. And this might be different for people who are partnered or live with family or whatever it might be. But it was kind of like, oh, wow, I haven't done this in a long time because having a roommate after a certain age is like a faux pas, right? In my mind. And then I thought like, would I live with someone when I moved back to New York? Like, I don't know, my age. And it was fascinating especially because I came back around COVID and so many of my friends that were living by themselves were so lonely. They were like, there's nowhere to go. There's no one to talk to. I'm staring at my wall. I'm like, and they were craving that kind of connection. And so I ended up actually living with a friend of mine. And, we thought, okay, this is like temporary. It's just like a thing during COVID. We got a COVID deal because, all apartments were less expensive, whatever. It was so much fun. It was something I never would have considered doing at a certain age had I not gone on this adventure. So that's, I think, one big example.
Yeah. And I love that. And how about something that you were sure this is how I want to live in terms of like something that you were doing before, like a way you were living in New York that you kind of had maybe this feeling of gratitude about and that you looked forward to coming back to?
So I'm a city girl, and like for me, culture and arts are super important. That's part of why I live in New York. And so I did miss a bit of like going to Broadway shows and theater and having that kind of lifestyle. I was away and I tried to do that as much as possible, which was amazing because certain cities, like I'd see whatever local shows, whatever was happening. And so that was something, of course, New York, it's the best here.
Yeah, totally.
So I was looking forward to coming back and saying, I know this is who I am and part of me. And I can't wait to dive more into it when I'm back.
Yeah, totally. Oh my gosh, that's so cool. All right. So you've got a book coming out in August, The Scenic Route. Just tell us a little bit more about the book.
Yeah. So the book is the personal stories from that year versus the professional part, which I had mentioned before. So, I didn't want to write about every single day and experience from that year. So it's a series of essays of stories, one from each month. So I really hook on to like one really amazing day or one adventure, one moment. And I go deep into it and I share a lot of self-reflection, what I was feeling, the people I met, so you get to know some of the friends that were on this journey with me and their backstories and why they were there themselves. Like, how did they end up on this year adventure? And so it's travel memoir style and quite self-reflective as well. And hopefully helps people think a bit more about their own life as well.
So fun. So it comes out in August. How can people pre-order a copy of that or get a copy of your other book?
Yeah. So pre-orders will start in April of 2026. So it depends when you're listening to this. So if they go to thescenicroutebook.com, they'll be able to get the book there. What's great, if you go there, you'll see there's all these bonuses if you pre-order the book. So you'll get like a book club discussion guide. So I think it's a good book to talk about with friends, like some of the conversations we've had today. So you get a book club guide, even a work team guide, because I created a different version that's a really great team building exercise. Conversations about identity, belonging, vulnerability, courage, all really important topics to talk about in the workplace as well. You get the first 3 chapters in advance if you pre-order, and you get a little behind the scenes interview with me and my editor. And we talk about how we put the book together. So it's kind of a fun thing. And if you order any of the book bundles, which are kind of several books at one time, I can join your book club discussion guide and facilitate the discussion, or you can ask me any questions about the book one-on-one, or if I join your work team, I can also facilitate that. So lots of fun things to be had on that. If you go to
that's a lot of value. It's a lot of value. That's great. So thescenicroutebook.com.
Right. There you go. And then for my other book, or general just to learn more about me, they can go to sarahaviram.com.
Awesome. And we'll put those in the show notes so people have an easy way to link. Sarah, like, this story is epic. And I mean, 12 months, 12 countries coming back, and, COVID is all of a sudden here. You can't make this stuff up. And some point, Hollywood is going to want to make a movie about you and your story.
From your lips to Hollywood's ears. This is
right.
My dream for any listeners. Do you have any connections? Let me know.
They're going to make a movie about you. And so what I want to know is, when they do, who's going to be the Hollywood actress that's going to play you in your movie?
This is such a hard question. Whenever I kind of joke around about this with friends, because I've got a lot of curly hair. And so I always go first, like, what actress kind of around my age is curly? I can't think of anyone. But if you can think of someone, let me know, because I struggle with it. All
right. Okay. We'll think about this and
maybe some of your listeners can give some suggestions.
Okay. I love it. So what's the name of the movie going to be?
I don't mind The Scenic Route. Does it have to be different than the book title?
No, heck no. I love it. The Scenic Route. That's the movie.
I feel like it's kind of solid. And let me tell you, it took a long time to come up with that title.
Yeah,
that was really hard.
I'm sure it's a project. I mean, that's a whole adventure in itself, writing a book. Oh my gosh.
I know. It is. Yeah. It is an adventure, a labor of love.
For sure. Sarah, this has been so much fun. Thank you so much for spending some time with me today. And for those listening, I hope you've been inspired today as much as I have. I hope Sarah's story has encouraged you to listen to the voice inside that calls you to adventure, because we want to hear your story next. If you have a story to tell or just need a nudge to create one, please send me an email. We'd also appreciate it if you'd help us spread the word by leaving a review and sharing or tagging Inspire Campfire in your social media. And until next time, I want to encourage you to get outside. Thanks for listening. Sarah, thank you so much for being here.
Thank you so much, Scott.